right, so today you are attending a session called Developing a Growth Model for Teacher Evaluation as the Foundation of an Integrated Professional Learning System. You do have a panel today, but our two organizers of the panel are Chris Rising from the San Diego County Office of Education. He is the Director of Human Resources, and Jill Tillier, did I say that right? Who is the Coordinator of Education Effectiveness and Evaluation, also at the San Diego County Office of Education. And I think they have one other individual who's going to speak to you. But if you have any questions, please let me know. My name is Ronnie Jones, and I'm with WestEd.
Hey, Ronnie, thanks. My name is Glenn Price. I'm the Chief Deputy with the California Department of Education. I'm really delighted to introduce this panel today and this session. I think you all made fantastic choice in being here. It ties back into the session we just did in the other room around labor management collaboration, because we know this work around evaluation in particular is never possible, never will have meaning, never will get to where we want to go without that work, that hard work of rolling up our sleeves around collaboration. And so even embedded in the title, we know this is a process. It never stops, even when we get to a place where we think that we've got a good system and we can always improve it and take it further. So really excited to be hearing about this work in San Diego. And I know that this work has been many years in the making. This is not something that you can start today and want to have online tomorrow. It's something that they've worked on for a long time. Chris, you said going back 7 years you've been working on this? Wow, that's amazing. So we all now get the benefit of all that hard work over 7 or 8 years. It involves 14 school districts in San Diego County, including several that you're going to hear from. And I think all told, it benefits over 250,000 students. So we are really delighted to be able to present this to you today and hope that we'll not only get to hear something from our panelists, but also engage in some dialogue going forward. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn over the mic to Chris and get ready for an exciting presentation.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to have you open for us. Welcome to our presentation. I'm Chris Rising, the Human Resource Director with the San Diego County Office of Education, and this is my partner in the brains of the outfit.
Jill Tillier, I'm a coordinator of the Teacher Effectiveness and Evaluation Project. Today, what we're here to do is to share with you the San Diego County Office of Education's Teacher Effectiveness and Evaluation Project. And it's an opportunity, a project where district teams come together, teams of teachers and district administration leaders that work collaboratively together to reinvent their teacher evaluation system for a growth-based model. We have packets for you on your table with a PowerPoint and several resources that we'll have you point to as we go out through our sessions. Today, our objectives are: we'd like you to learn about a little bit of the history, how we got to the evaluation project, what does it look like, identify some of our foundational documents, what are the structures and the processes that we use to support our districts through this process, and also identify the key learning from districts that are in our project and what they're learning about this work together. At the end of our session, we'd like you to come away with 3 big ideas. What is the E3 project and what's the opportunities it provides for our districts, and also to think about the culture shifts that it can create in the districts that are working through this process, in the labor and management relationships, and to think about evaluation in possibly a new light as part of a professional development and integrated growth system for our teachers.
Thank you. So we have some core documents that we've used as the foundation of all the work that bring together the research. The essence of our project is developing an integrated professional learning system where it's a cohesive system across a teacher's cradle to retirement experience. So we're basically rolling out the recommendations of Greatness by Design in a very context-driven way. The recommendations of Greatness by Design broke down into 3 large areas: a coherent continuum of learning. So imagine where preparation linked closely to the point of hire and induction aligned with how teachers are evaluated, and all the professional learning opportunities aligned with what was being supported in induction. What's measured in evaluation is what's supported and has alignment with professional learning. and then developing a system that creates collaborative learning opportunities about effective practice. This project is nothing else if it's not a culture shift model that we've learned over the years, changing the culture to where we all get better together. We love to say, actually Mr. Sonic, who you'll meet later, has stated this morning that we've yet to meet the teacher that doesn't want to learn and grow and get better. And we are about empowering and resourcing and supporting that. And then a consistent revenue base. If only I were king of the world. Moving on, yes. There would be different things, and some of you would be frightened, I believe. Here's the vision out of Greatness by Design for that coherent system. So imagine a system where there's alignment with the standards from preparation through induction, professional learning, evaluation, and teacher leadership opportunities. So the CSTP, the California Standards for the Teaching Profession, drive it along this entire continuum. There's coaching as a through line. There's evidence-based as a through line. We're building in a lot of video as one of those bodies of evidence, as one of the through lines. You know, at the TPA, there's video. There's video being piloted in induction. We're looking at video evidence in some of our evaluation systems. We have a national boards pilot that uses video. So we're looking for those coherent through lines, standards-driven, evidence-based, focused on growth. So these are the recommendations from Chapter 6 from Greatness by Design. We know it needs to have a common language, which are the standards, an array of evidence. How can we make sure that the formative is emphasized as much, if not more, than the summative, because it's about growth? Feedback. Every system that we are supporting districts in building in their context has a coaching component. It's the so what. So I gathered evidence, we looked at your practice, so what are we going to do looking forward to benefit those students in your classroom? It's that so what coaching. And it's connected to professional learning. So there's resources and support for those goals. Those teachers that might need assistance, when you take Chris from his 6th grade classroom at the middle school and drop me into a bilingual kindergarten, I taught kindergarten for about 6 months, and God love those kindergarten teachers. I needed support. And so along with teachers that just need support. And so we have to have resources and support built in place and promote teacher collaboration. How do we help break down some of those self-imposed barriers around how peers support each other in these systems? So how did this project develop? Well, as I say, we were struggling years and years ago, but as part of our strategic planning, in improving the teacher evaluation process internally at the San Diego County Office of Education. We have over 200 teachers in our court and community schools, and we were looking at some of our teacher evaluations, and they were being done very poorly. Cursory, not evidence-based. So we looked internally and started building out these modules to skill build internally. That led to us looking, it just expanded at that point. We did a 1-year lit review. What's all the research on teacher evaluation nationwide? We did a year of focus groups where we had everybody from association presidents to superintendents, university faculty, elementary, middle, high school teachers, human resource, curriculum and instruction leads. We spent a whole year of just gathering information to inform the work as we built forward. And right around that time, Greatness by Design started rolling out. The report in 2012, we had visitors from the Department of Education that wanted to visit the Poway Unified School District in San Diego County. They have a very unique model. It works very well for Poway and historically has been very rich in support. So we were bringing that team to visit Poway, and we said, oh, by the way, they go, we've heard what some of the work you're doing. We brought up our resources. We saw the alignment. They funded a small pilot to get us off the ground, and that pilot led to an array of partnerships that, come on, machine. Help me, Jill. That pilot led to an array of partnerships, thank you, the brains behind the outfit, that really shifted our model to a much stronger research base and an array of thought partners, from Angela Manici, who you heard covering for Linda Darling Hammond, her team, AIR, the Reed out of UC Davis has been a great partner. WestEd did a lot of work with us around some of the key features Jill will share with you. And CTA has been a deep partnership from square one in terms of ensuring that we had representation at the table. A district can't join without association and management reps. And then two, we've partnered deeply with them on the national boards piece, and we'll share that with you later on. So our guiding documents, and we found alignment across the research that's driven these, is the Greatness by Design recommendations, it was co-chaired by, what's her name? Linda Darling-Hammond, Mr. Rising. Yes, and then one of the things we overtly do is we take a look at the CTA white paper and the guiding principles in the CTA white paper and do a comparison and lay them next to Greatness by Design. We pull up Linda Darling-Hammond's book on getting teacher evaluation right and the core pillars of a growth system that she has identified through research, and the concept of everyone must be at the table from the Great Teachers and Leaders Center back in DC. And the alignment across these documents is remarkable, but they're all based on evidence. So that's the platform, that's the toolkit that we use as we do this work. So one of the pieces are a document developed by our partners at WestEd around key features of systems nationwide.
WestEd had done a national review of the current state of teacher evaluation, and they were looking at what are the components that really create an effective growth-based system. And these are key features that their research found. You have this in your packet. It looks like this. And some of these key features that we focus on is looking at purpose, having a system that's clear to all the stakeholders that are in the system. What is my role? What is my responsibility? How does this whole system work? Another key feature is professional standards. You heard from Linda Darling-Hammond and from Angela Malici about having that common understanding of great teaching and learning in your system. What is that common understanding? And having a system that's developed on professional standards that all stakeholders understand. Looking at multiple measures, how are we really looking at and evaluating all the amazing things teachers do? We know we have teacher observations, but what else might we be looking at so we can really look all of the craft of what a teacher does? Structures and processes. What are the structures and processes that allow this to be a growth-based model, to be allowed to be focused on teachers' needs? How is it connected with what's going on with professional development and the curriculum and development side of the house? How are those structures really having that conversation between evaluator and a teacher so it's really a growth-based model based on that person's needs? Qualified evaluators. What kind of training do we have in professional development for evaluators? What does that look like? What would it look like on the side for the teacher? What does the teacher need to feel that we're going to have a growth-based conversation? What kind of skills and skill sets do we need our evaluators to have? And then how do we resource the system so that it's doable for administrators, it's doable for teachers, and it's doable with the pot of money we happen to have? How do we leverage current resources? How might we use resources that have been used in one opportunity in our district, and maybe we use and leverage them for what we're doing with evaluation and professional development. We use these key features as a guide for our districts as they are creating their new systems. And we actually build our academy contents based on these key features. So one session might be on, let's really look at the California standards for the teaching profession and have a deep dive so we have understanding about how to have conversation about teaching and learning on a common playing field in our district. Or what are the multiple measures we could use? We know about observation, but we're not real sure about something else. So what might we look at? So we use these specific features to build systems and look at how do we build our understanding of the system, and then what would it look like in our district. As part of our project, we want to be able to help districts reinvent their teacher evaluation systems for growth based on the recommendations of Greatness by Design. So this is our vision. We call our work E3 because educator effectiveness and evaluation is a mouthful, so we lovingly call it E3. And it's really about supporting districts to create systems that really support collaboration among all stakeholders, align professional development to teachers' goals, and really promote that educator growth. To participate in our E3 project, districts need to think about their level of readiness. These are the prerequisites that we have. One of our most important is about the team of teachers and district administration and site-based leaders that you bring to the project. We want you to bring a team that's representative of your stakeholder group so that the folks back at the ranch at your district, they see, oh, I see a special ed teacher on that team. I see a site principal on that team. Those are my people. I see someone who's a coach on that team. I see someone who's from early childhood education on that team or from science on that team. So we really want a representative stakeholder group. We can't do this work without all the stakeholders being present. So part of the readiness is, are we ready to do this together? Because this work is really about the collaboration between teachers, administration, and the district. Districts attend 6 to 8 input academies where they learn content about the key features of effective systems. They participate in intersession work where one of our team members facilitate their conversations about what they would like their district evaluation system to look like and help them build those structures. A huge piece is about communicating with stakeholders. This is a system that we want to build together. And we want to make sure that everybody is coming along together. So it's not sometimes what happens in education that a great, bright group of people create this wonderful thing, but nobody knew about it and nobody had any part of it. So we want it to be something that it's a process that everybody is an opportunity to have input with, and everyone at the same time is moving along the process. And of course, we help contribute with our learning, which is why our panel is here today to help us learn and to share their learnings with you. Our structure is kind of a cyclical process. It starts with our input sessions, which we call academy sessions. Again, we base that learning on learning about effective components. What does a collaborative evaluation system look like in other districts and across our nation, and what are those key components? And they have an opportunity to look at research, speakers, and then between each of the input sessions, they go back to their district with an external facilitator from our office to answer the question, so what? What does this mean for our district? What would this look like in our district? What could multiple measures look like in our district? What would a qualified evaluator look like in our district? So intersession is an opportunity to contextualize how these effective components can really work in your district. As part of their intersession work, it's about that communication with stakeholders. We have a team that's representative, but how do we let our teachers and our site administrators and our district administrators be part of what we're learning and also be able to have feedback about what we're working on? So it's a two-way communication. So the whole district is moving along together. And their goal in intersession is to develop those key features, those processes and structures and procedures that will create this professional learning system for their teachers. In the academies, they have an opportunity to become a collaborative learning system with other districts. There's usually 4 to 6 districts in the academy sessions, so they get to learn from and with each others, focusing on the things we talked about, key features, research, national samples. In intersession, it's all about that context of that specific district. What will work in your district and what are the needs of your district? Some of the things we focus on, what are your hopes and fears about teacher evaluation? What are your guiding principles? What would you like it to look like? What might your ideal system look like? And again, what are your communication structures going to be so your entire district is moving forward together and everyone feels part of the process and what is created throughout your district? And again, what does it look like? How will we make this work? What kind of resources might we need? It's all about, as we say, context, context, context. It looks different, as you'll hear from our panel, in every single district because it's about how do we support our teachers in our district for the greatness of our kids. We have a couple samples for you in your packet. The first yellow page is a sample of guiding principles. This is one of the first things that districts work on together. What would you envision your system to look like? What do you want it to include? And this comes from Greatness by Design, Chapter 6, and also the CTA White Paper. We have teams look at those two recommendations, and from that, what resonates from them. So these are some of the things that resonate with many of our districts. The opportunities that districts have to be part of the opportunity for the E3 project is they get to learn from and with other districts. Districts that may be similar, but districts that may be different from them as well. They get to receive technical support from the county office, so they get lots of research opportunities and lots of samples from across the state and across the nation. And they have some opportunities for National Board for the Professional Teaching Standards that Chris will talk about in just one moment, and to really be part of creating a system and a model that might help other districts go through this process of revising the teacher evaluation system.
And so, thank you, Jill. One of the key pieces in the belief system around this work is growth for all, right? I used to say even Tiger Woods had a coach, but now I've evolved to Michael Jordan had a coach. Even the greatest need that kind of coaching to continue to improve. In this profession, you're either moving forward or going backward. There's no sitting still. The landscape around us is moving. So what we've done is partnered with the California Teachers Association and offered teachers the opportunity to raise their hand and say, I'm willing to work really hard for a couple years and sharpen my craft, and then demonstrate it and earn this certification. So we have a cohort of, we're closing in on 80, 90 teachers that are being supported through this work. We have an online, blended, and face-to-face coaching opportunities. So we're developing the expertise here in San Diego County, and we have a pilot cohort starting out in Imperial County, our partners, and we have requests from districts to start another cohort. What we have found is the pent-up demand for teachers to grow and to take on new learning is astounding. This exceeded our expectations in a big way. But it's that concept of if you are an exemplar or you receive the, I'll talk about my experience. I always, you get a satisfactory, it shows up in your box and you sign it. That was the flyby checklist model of evaluation that I had for my 11 years teaching upper elementary, middle school. This is the one where those best teachers, all teachers, have opportunities to grow and improve in an area where they have a voice to drive it. And we resource them 3 ways to Sunday to make so that they improve their practice for the students they teach. It's phenomenal. Like I say, the teacher buy-in and ownership of this process. These are the districts we're working with. And if you look up on the left, Bonsall and Mountain Empire, very, very rural. San Diego Unified, 7th largest district in the nation. Steel Canyon Charter High School, a single school. So in our partnership with the Reed Center at UC Davis, we're consciously looking for diverse contexts to roll this process out. Because our belief is you can't give a system, we can't give you a new evaluation tool. We can take you through a process where you learn together, build that trust and collaboration, and then you build a tool based on research that works for your students and your teachers and your schools. So it's really context driven, but as you can see, we've got large districts, small districts, urban, rural. It's a lot of learning as we go. I'd love to say we fail every day and we try really hard the next day. And it's that kind of learning that all of us take on. So we're gonna have a panel now. We have from Grossmont Union High School District, Steve Sonic, Associate Administrator, Human Resources, that's joining us. From Sweetwater Union High School District, we have Diana Carberry, Assistant Superintendent Curriculum, I believe. No, she'll correct me. We have Ana Pedrosa, Middle School Principal, and this is not Roberto Rodriguez, the Sweetwater Union High School District Association President, but we will hear from him in a second. Grossmont is in East County, and you can see 18 schools, about 1,000 teachers, 17,000 students, diverse student population. Sweetwater, located in South County, right, South San Diego County, almost 2,000 teachers, about twice as many schools, 40,000 students, and very diverse student population. So those are the two contexts of the presenters we're going to have today. Roberto was asked to just tell the story a little bit about, from his perspective as association president, this work.
We had been in a major crisis. We were basically weeks away from a strike at one point about a year and a half ago. And it was shortly after that got settled that the opportunity to participate in educator effectiveness and teacher evaluation process came to the district. I had long since seen what was happening in Sacramento in terms of legislation and where that was headed, and always felt that would be much better for us to participate in a process that would not only engage but shape what teacher evaluation looked like in our district, as opposed to waiting for somebody to do that to us. At a time when there was no trust at all in our district, we found an area where we could work together. We found an area where we could approach it from a common ground, from the notion of teacher growth. There was a point where the opportunity to send some teachers to get their national board certification came up. Traditionally, it had been one of those issues where, as a union, we would say, well, it's a district's responsibility to pay for that, or to help defray the cost of that, or to promote that. But we felt it was important enough for us to, put some skin in the game, actually, participate in that, in sponsoring some of our members to participate. The response was literally overwhelming. I think originally we had planned for 20 spots, and we had 40 applicants, and that list has since grown from that. The key thing has been communication. To be able to communicate with our members, the employees of the district, to communicate jointly, to agree as to what communication is going out, not in a sense of what are we going to tell them or what are we not going to tell them, but to be able to frame what we're doing equally in the same way, to be able to talk about both on the management side and on the labor side as to what steps we're taking and why we're taking them, and speak of that in the same way. Again, in a situation where there was not a lot of trust to begin with, it's, members have been able to not only participate in the process, but give us feedback, and we're hoping to do more of that as well. Interestingly enough for us, it's been one of those issues where we started the process thinking we have to revamp this whole evaluation system, and in the middle of that process we decided, our evaluation system isn't that bad, and I think the concerns, the focus needs to be more on how we approach it and less on the steps that we take in terms of just the procedural stuff. It's been more of a, how do we adjust not only the teacher's attitude towards evaluation, but the administrator, the evaluator's attitude towards the evaluation process. Go all in, decide to participate. Anybody going into this process needs to be really open to what might happen, right? You need to be open to the process, and you need to be willing to go through the frustrations of the process, because you never know where it's going to lead, and it certainly has led to what I think is going to be a good pilot for our teachers and a good system eventually for our district.
We really can't talk about this work without having the labor management piece really at the forefront. So what we'd like to do is to stop yammering at you and let those folks who are really doing the work give you some insight. And there is opportunities for questions. If you have a question, let us know. We must repeat it for the video. But what I'd like you guys to do, and jump right in there, and being the polite adults that you are, who tell us a story of how your district came to participate in this program.
First of all, I'd just like to say, you just stuck a camera in front of that guy? And he came out with that?
Yes.
My goodness. That was really well done. So ditto what he said. But our sights were set more modestly and somewhat like what Chris said about SDCOE is we looked at kind of how is the state of our evaluation system and honestly, it wasn't very well done. We used the California Standard on Teacher Profession as the tool, but was it anything more than an event, not a process? It was definitely an event. And even that was, I would say, spotty. So one of the things that our superintendent did was challenge me to find a way to improve the evaluation system. I attended, as we do in lots of regions, a monthly meeting for human resources professionals at the County Office of Ed. And I think it was Chris who presented on a website or that they had put together a whole bunch of really cool resources that conceivably could take somebody from stem to stern on the idea of learning how to turn this into a process instead of just an event. And they kind of previewed it a little bit. And if you're somebody that didn't have anything and you were looking at how do we do the following, we need a system in our district that's accountable, it's systematic, verifiable, it's sustainable, meaning that we have about 100 certificated administrators. Probably the last time that they were trained was 5 or 6 years ago. And how is it that we're going to continue to train people consistently on an ongoing basis, realistically, right? It's one thing to say it. It's a whole nother thing to really build sustainability into what you're going to do about training your administrators. That the evaluation have meaning and value. If it doesn't have value to those that are being evaluated, it will not work, right? We thought that it was important that we find a way to tie it to professional development. I think it's pretty clear to me. My background is purely in human resources, and I greatly respect our educators. I took a hard look at the California Standard on Teacher Profession, and it's a professional development tool. That's what it's built to do. It is not built to identify teachers or employees that should no longer be in the profession. There are a whole lot of other ways that happens, typically in our state. But one of the ways it does not happen is through the evaluation process. And it's because that tool the state has adopted isn't designed to do that. So why are we beating our head against the wall trying to think of this as some sort of tool that should do something that it doesn't? And it became clear to me that, hey, why don't we get with the program, and because it is a really good professional growth document and plan and roadmap, why don't we use it in the manner in which it was intended? The last thing was we believed that there wasn't a way to get from here to there without trust, meaning that at the end of the day, that the evaluator and the evaluatee, the teacher, principal, teacher, vice principal, peer-to-peer, whatever the relationship is, if they don't trust each other as professionals, that they're here to do one thing, which is to help each other get better, and that there's a hidden agenda or some sort of side door, value-added, sneak around the corner kind of deal. My experience is that professional educators smell that about 2 miles off, and it would be dead in the water. But it's another thing to create that. So those were the only things we were looking for, right? Kind of the, and if you can find a way to walk on water, that would be great. When I saw a full-blown website that took us through a process where I thought, hey, we could actually have, with some guided training, something that could be given to every administrator, whether they come in mid-year or end of year. It's sustainable as a cohort. It's sustainable, in a variety of ways. I went, wow! I about came out of my chair. I'm like, thank you. This is something that's fantastic. Well, the county office didn't stop there, right? They then went on and they grew that into a pilot in which they would bring districts like us in and begin to train us in an academy-like fashion. So now I'm getting a cohort of people to come in and get specific training, not just on the website, but on all this other stuff in a collaborative group of administrators and labor professionals, our leadership of our labor union, together and getting training from experts. Double wow, okay? Because I started at 0, right? Then that grew into an academy, a full-blown 8-session, 6-session academy in which you've got a full day devoted. It's very organized. It's very well done. It's all research-based. They're really training you how to go through the change process. They're cajoling you. They're convincing you. They're at times kicking you in the rear end. And then if that's not good enough for you, they'll come out and help you in between sessions to work on certain, activities. So, frankly, that's the real deal. There isn't a shortcut. There isn't an easy way to get from here to there. And our experience is that if you do that, then I think that there is an overwhelming thirst for real and meaningful evaluation by teachers of all kinds. One quick thing, and I'll pass the baton here. We started with the idea that, a suggestion from the people running the academy was that you do a survey of your teachers. And not only did I think that that we weren't ready for it, our union president didn't think we were ready for it. And we then met with Chris and another member of his team, and they walked us through that it was not the boogeyman, and that we could, in fact, survey all of our teachers and administrators about what they thought was good with the system and what they thought was not, and how it could be improved. We jointly wrote a cover letter, which they gave us a template for. And here's the big thing, that we put that out right before Thanksgiving. We've now got results, but the really big thing that's really exciting is we had over a 50% response rate. Think of those surveys that any of us have ever done. I've never gotten a 50% response rate on anything, let alone something that we thought might be a little controversial, might be a little touchy, etc. So in terms of the story of how we became involved, that's where we are right now, which is now we've got data from our 500 respondents about what they like, what they don't like, and anecdotal comments about what they would like to see in the system. So now we've got a roadmap by which to build it, again, through the lens of the research in the academy.
Hi, as a middle school principal walking into Sweetwater Union High School District, when Roberto says that the district was in crisis, let me just tell you how serious it was. In my 3 years, I've worked for 2 superintendents and an additional 2 interim superintendents. In addition, 5 newly elected board members. There was zero trust on our campus. And yet it was my role as a site administrator to go into people's classrooms, people who I'd never met before, observe them, evaluate them. They had no reason to trust me. They didn't know them. I didn't know that. We didn't know each other. I've always been very passionate about administrators being in the classrooms. And so when I was asked to be a part of the Sweetwater team, I was really excited about the opportunity to do something together with our association, our group of teachers, and moving things forward so that, again, it's a process, not an event. And I learned so much this morning in thinking about, so we talk about the 6 California standards for the teaching profession, and administrators walk into classrooms, and they're thinking about all 6. And we're faulting our teachers when they're looking at 120 math standards that they used to have to get through. It's the same thing. So to be able to work with teachers, guidance from the county office, because let me tell you, Sweetwater was not ready to do it without any kind of assistance. So it was a great place to start, and are we there yet? We're not there yet, but I'm so pleased and so blessed to be a part of this process.
Thanks for joining our session. My name is Diana Carberry, and my title is interesting. It's we have an assistant superintendent of teaching and learning, sort of parallel what you heard today. And my role is leadership development and systems innovation. But I also get to supervise all those schools, so it's been kind of fun. I also see this from 2 different lenses, because I used to work in the district 7, 8 years ago, unretired to come back and join the superintendent, who also used to work in the district, and had a really great relationship with the union back in that time. And so as a result of some of those things, I think the power of this has been to reestablish those relationships. We have a teachers union, but we also have 5 labor unions. And so they all participated in the conference that they mentioned in the previous session. And just the power that's had in our dialogue. And we are now at a phase, as I said, I came in halfway through all of this process. Our other assistant superintendent sits on the team as well. So they invited 2 more folks to the table. And what I've seen through the process is that level of trust continuing to grow and getting to the point that Roberto talked about, that we don't really need to change the system that we're using, but how we're approaching it. And so our district has long spent time talking about a growth model for students. We have a growth model for student performance, right? So unbeknownst to our superintendent and I, so we came in, the district was working on this project, but we've also paralleled this with a growth process for the administrators' evaluation process as well. And so our unions know that we're all going through this together, and it's been extremely powerful. We've identified some very specifics. It's a joint dialogue. Nobody thinks that they have the right answer. And so we've debated often with Jill present in some of our sessions about what are teachers really ready for, what would that look like, and we're hopeful that our pilot for this with teachers will begin in the 16-17 school year. And so we've made that much progress in a short period of time that I think has been extremely helpful to the students that we serve. One of the other benefits of this program that you don't see here, we are the 2nd largest secondary school district in the state. But if you add the 4 feeder districts, of which 3 are part of this process as well, we serve about 90,000 kids in our community. So Grossmont is one of our neighboring districts. So in San Diego County alone, the number of kids being affected by the San Diego Unified as well is, phenomenal when you looked at that overall number. And so we have another advantage of being able to work with our feeder districts and then talk about what's good, what's working for everyone. So I've really enjoyed that process and that part of it.
Thank you very much. It's really remarkable to see the South County coalesce around this initiative and take it as a step forward. You touched on this already. I'm going to ask you to respond to, I'm going to combine these 2. How has participation in this process impacted the labor management relationship in your district? And as you shift to a growth-oriented system, how are you defining evaluation and the roles and responsibilities of the evaluator? So I'm going to push a little bit, because you touched a little bit on you can't do this without labor management collaboration to get in the door. So I'll let you just respond.
Yeah, I'll just touch on that again, real briefly. The best thing that I've seen is that, I do labor negotiations, and even though I think we have a pretty good relationship with our associations, labor negotiations are what they are. They're very difficult, and there's a lot of roles that you have to play, and you have to respect those roles on either side of the table. And that often those roles carry over into events like this. But if you will, get behind the mask that we all wear. I wear one, I can tell you. I'm not speaking out of turn. And the thing that did it for us was when you guys came out and helped us through our survey conundrum, and you had us write down what are our hopes and what are our fears. And we were honest about that, and somehow or another, there was something about that helped us kind of open up a little bit to where it was just now, what's the best thing that we can do for teachers? And so we actually started listening to the advice that we were getting from our association and our principals, who are just as frustrated about not being able to do as good a job as they would like on evaluations. And so the labor relationship wasn't about the chief negotiator and the union president anymore. It was about the principals that are part of the group, the administrators are part of the group, and the labor leadership on. That's where the real connection really expanded in terms of the shift to a growth-oriented system and defining the roles and responsibilities. I'd say that's a work in progress for us, but we clearly know and have had a lot of interest from all sectors. It's just a question of getting it done, which is to have a system that's tailored enough for a variety of different kinds of jobs. The psychologist, the speech pathologist, the counselor. And so that's a key feature that we see in our data from our survey.
So when we started this process, it was very clear. Members of our Sweetwater Education Association, our teachers sat on one side of the table and management sat on the other. And we talked at each other, didn't talk to each other. And then at break, management would go sit together and get something to drink, cup of coffee, a little cookie, and our teachers would do the same. And we had a meeting yesterday, and it was completely different. But it's taken 2 years, right? Year and a half, where it doesn't matter. You just walk in and you sit down and you talk to the person next to you. Everyone leaves their ego at the door. That was a tough thing for people to understand. Hey, leave your ego at the door. Listen. It's really about listening. And it's really for the best interest of everyone. And I think a big turning point for us was everyone at the table really voicing the belief that when people go into education, it's a lifelong decision. And not because an administrator has a master's in administration and you may have a master's in reading, do I get to determine, oh, you're not good enough for this? That's just not okay. So really going to the table thinking, this is a growth model. Let's work on this together for our kids. Let's understand each other. Let's listen to each other. And I have to tell you, I look forward to those meetings. And the first couple times, I would wake up and cringe. Absolutely cringe, not knowing what to expect. But we've had some really, really healthy conversation. The communication has been joint communication. Even going through the results of the survey together really helped all of us see and understand that teachers and administrators alike were confused about some of the same exact topics when it came to evaluation, and felt very similar in many cases. So it's been really, really healthy for us as a school district.
I remember a district where they could not agree on the term, a mentor or a partner or a coach or a colleague, what's another word? Support. We couldn't agree on the word. The concept of a colleague supporting, they couldn't agree on the word. And to see that journey where they can throw it out there in an honest way, it takes time because they've sat across the table for so long. So to hear these stories warms my heart. I'm going to ask, so what are you learning about defining and measuring effective practice in a system focused on teacher growth? Thinking about observation, coaching, multiple measures, the CSTP. As you're looking at a growth system, what are you learning about measuring that?
At this stage, in our process, we've identified that this is truly a collaboration. So when the teacher and the evaluator are meeting that first time, it really is talking about, and even written into our union, the goal is that it will become part of the union contract, that teachers have options. It doesn't have to be just an observation. It could be an observation and other multiple measures. And what those other multiple measures are, at this stage, they're still kind of a little fuzzy, but there's still openness around the dialogue around it. So we're pretty clear that we're interested in, at least in the beginning it was one observation. Now it could be multiple observations, which was a real stumbling block with the union at first. And that was their proposal. It wasn't management's. So that was kind of interesting to see that shift. And then the other side of that is the coaching model and working together. We already have a system in place through professional development where our teacher leaders lead professional development and administrators are part of that team. So that's been part of our system for 8-9 years, for a long time. So that component I don't think was as stressful as the end of looking at it and saying, okay, so if you wanted to do this, how could we use video? How could we use structures? What would a portfolio look like if you wanted to do that? So we, for the pilot, have actually agreed to 4 of the CSTPs and focusing around and specifically taking 6.1, which is reflective practice, to say you can't really get to that through an observation. So what kind of rubric would we develop? What would that look like? And how can we get everyone to that point? So through that lens, it's been really kind of exciting. And the teachers, I think, have the same excitement. And they know that we're saying to them, we don't necessarily have all the answers. You're the experts in the classroom. What do you think provides this? And so we've really come to agreement on that as that initial meeting happens, that it really is a joint decision by the team. And if you decide that you want to go and observe other teachers, we've sort of kind of got that little stumbling block because there are terms I'm sure all of you have in your district, like if you throw out a word, they go, oh no, we can't do that because that was really bad like 10 years ago or something. So we can't use that word. But the concept is exactly the same, right? It's just we have to come up with a creative way. So collegial conversations versus a coach or mentor or something else. But nevertheless, really open to that. Which I'm told from the beginning was not even necessarily part of the dialogue with people. So that's been really exciting. And as we move, as I said, a little bit farther, because I oversee professional growth, which is a completely separate concept in our district over professional development, we've just, with our new grant fundings, we actually have a director of professional development and our induction director also all work through that process. And they're well respected. Our new induction person actually was a member of the union leadership team. And so I think we really do have an idea that we're partners in all of this. And at sometimes we lead, at sometimes we sit back and the teachers lead. And it's a very comfortable dance at this point, I think. That's what I've seen, being here since July.
I guess the only thing I have to add to that is we really have gotten to an understanding where teachers and administrators, if we are asked or if we're asking someone to do something different, there should be nothing punitive in that process, right? So we're asking teachers to teach in different ways, and then we walk in with that old evaluation form. Ta-da! That doesn't work for folks. It has to be a very non-threatening situation, and so it's a pretty it's a huge risk that everyone is taking. And so for our pilot, the beauty of it is that it's going to be on a voluntary basis. So no teacher is going to have to go through that the first year because it's their year. Rather, they get to choose to be a part of that process and then be a part of the conversation about what went well and what do we need to do differently.
I'll just add two quick things. One, in terms of the difficulty of measurement, it's, I think, not just our school districts, but I would suggest in our industry, a critical problem that the thing that we think is most important is to increase the effectiveness of our evaluation to help impact practice. That will help impact instruction, will help impact student learning. The research apparently is rock solid there. The real problem is how to fit that in with the 1,000 other things that are on the plate of a vice principal or principal of a middle school. And the idea that you can get into a classroom and do 10 observations and you have 30 people to evaluate in a year is, frankly, crazy in our industry. But that's what we do. We have got to deal with that problem. That is not a sustainable model. Doesn't matter how good your intentions are. If you can't take the time to do it right, it will never happen. So we have to, and we've identified that, we were going to hit it head on. I don't have the answer, but I can tell you that's the biggest problem. One of the techniques that we're going to try to use that I would encourage you all to look at is technology. I'm not going to plug any one company, but I looked at a lot of different companies that now are automating the evaluation process, and I can tell you that the software industry is there now. I don't think they were there 4 or 5 years ago. There's several good companies out there that aren't terrifically expensive, but the idea that they can manage the logistics, manage the communication, manage the paperwork, help everybody, have the forms in front of them, have the rubric that allows an observation such that contemporaneously they can put a code in that links it to a standard as they see it. All of those things are, standard software database 101 right now. And they're built and they're very, very good. We think that will help a little bit with the efficiency of the time for both the evaluator and the teacher. But I think that realistically, and lastly, I'd say is, the San Diego County Office of Education did this to, I think, establish that there is a methodology that is repeatable, not just in San Diego, but other places as well. And I think that there are pilot projects and projects all over the state such that the answer to the question is that this is absolutely repeatable in any region, and the methodologies that have been used, the work that's been done here, is going to be shared with anybody who wants it. So it's really cool.
So I'm going to keep the mic because you get 30 seconds or less. What is one or two maximum pieces of advice you give to a district interested in heading down this revision path? To honor the time, but I do want you guys to have a last closing statement.
Walk the walk. Make sure that there isn't any hidden agenda before you get started. If there is one, I would suggest you not do it. You could make things worse. You really can. And this is a heart-to-heart that you need to have with your own executive team. If there's something going on that you've got a side door that would not make this a legitimate, straight-up deal in which you can look each other in the face and make sure that you're talking the truth, don't do it. Don't do it. But if you can do that, I would say, please do it. Please do it.
I say jump in, be committed, calendar those times, read the research, and leave the ego at the door. Everyone is in it for the right reason, which is to improve the teaching profession for our kids.
I think I would tell you, be prepared for it to be messy, right? Messy at the start. And although we have common goals and ideas for the outcome, this is sort of a messy process. I don't know a better word. It's just kind of messy. But, you know, as you work through it together as a group and as a team, it really creates, I think, sustaining relationships between people that then at other times gives you strength to resolve other problems. And I think that's the benefit that you'll see as a result of this, which is to recognize that, you know, there will be some people with egos. There will be some people that have a specific idea, already pre-planned outcome, and that it's critical to ensure that everybody understands that that one person doesn't have an idea and we're going to direct you to that end. That really is a collaborative process, and that you have to, as I said, you have to model what your expectation is.
We call it slow, emotionally laden work. It is the best work to do, but it is slow and emotionally laden. Yes.
I have two questions. How do you differentiate for your interns, pre-interns, probationary ones with this process? What are your ideas about that? And how are you addressing the concern about the expertise of the evaluator? For example, are any of you doing like evaluator teams that teachers could select from that has expertise in their content area, for example?
So the first question was how are we differentiating for different assignments in our district? And the second was how are we thinking about the qualities or the qualifications of evaluators and thinking about possible teams of expertise?
So in terms of the first question, the process that we're going through, the pilot, is not open to those probationary or temp teachers or any of the interns. We agreed at a certain point that we would be working with tenured teachers on the tenured track only for the purpose of the pilot. In terms of expertise in subject area, we're still working out that piece because part of the conversation is peer evaluations, but the other piece also is an understanding that it's not about, I think I said this in yesterday's meeting, it's not about my walking into a chemistry class and knowing chemistry content. It's about what is it that you've asked me to observe and to give you feedback on. What teaching strategy are we talking about? And what kind of feedback can I give you to grow in that area? So it's not subject, in that sense, it's not about the subject matter. But we're still having conversation about peer evaluations, mentor, coach, which is the right word, all that. So that isn't set yet.
The only other thing I would say is that we also have worked in a partnership with the County Office of Ed, working from the platform of the University of Washington's, College of Educational Leadership and the 5 dimensions. And so it's all about evidence-based feedback. And so how do you use that to then really help teachers grow? Because coming in with a checklist and telling them that doesn't validate the work and the plans that they've done. So that's another commitment we've made for our management team. So everyone, and that includes our school psychologists, are participating in this training session as well.
We have several resources that we wanted to share with you in your packet, starting with the green paper. We wanted to show some of the artifacts that our districts were working on to possibly help you with your decision to think about revising your teacher evaluation system. The green sheet of paper is actually sample contract language. One is 2 pages long from one district, and one is a paragraph because it's all about context. One district needed 2 pages to make everybody feel that this is going to be a collaborative process. One district needed a paragraph. So it's really about what works for your district. The blue piece of paper is a sample rubric using the California Standards for the Teaching Profession and I think Standard 1.5 critical thinking and problem solving. The district really needed to find an opportunity to build that common language about teaching and learning in their district. What do we mean when we're talking about building critical thinking skills and problem solving skills, which is so connected to our new academic standards? What does that look like so that we can have conversations that it's not about you and it's not about me, it's about the evidence that we bring to the table. The next piece of paper is TAN, and that is a growth plan that a district is working on because they wanted to make sure that they can have consistent practice across their schools where there's goal setting and there's conversations based on evidence and there's support, and they wanted a place to document that so that really was that collaborative process because it's a large district and they want to make sure that it's consistent across all of their schools. And the last one is yellow, light yellow, and it's a sample portfolio evaluation process because they really wanted an opportunity to, to capture that magic and art and science of teaching and not have to be so linear in the process. And so they wanted an opportunity for teachers that really wanted to do that action research and that inquiry-based model. And what we could, teachers want to do these great things and we want to support them in that process. So these are some of the resources for you. One of our favorite things in your packet is the next article, which Angela Lanishi is one of our heroes, and you got to hear from her today. This is a great, very short article that we encourage anybody who's interested in this work to read. And it's all about the mind shifts and teachers' evaluations. And she comes up with 10 to 15 what not to do, which is nice. What not to do. We encourage you to read that as part of your homework and think about your district. What could you do to avoid those common mistakes that she talks about? So it's always nice to know what, and it's like having a big sister. Don't do this when you go to high school, right? Avoid these things and your life will be more successful. Angela Nietzsche is great about that. And we want to share with you at the end really our key learnings. And one of them, we see this again, it's not because we can't read and we see it that it's already done once. Context, context, context. It is about your district and your stakeholders in your district. And creating something together with your stakeholders based on what you value for students and for teachers is what's going to be successful in your districts, correct? It's not about what works for one district or another district. Everyone at the table, which is a book that we talked about, but everyone at the table, it's really about we have equal voice. It's not about what position you have. It's not about how long you've been here. It's not about where you are in the food chain. It's about we're all working together. We all have equal voice for the same purpose of supporting teachers to support the students in our district. Communication, again, we're redundant because you can never communicate too much. And as part of their sessions, the team actually creates a common communication message to send out collaboratively to everyone so that everybody really is moving through this process together. And one of our rules is you can only speak about this process positively because as we know, if we're all going to do something together, we all have the best intention, so we need to be positive. There's a very key part for an external facilitator. Wouldn't you say this is bumpy work sometimes? It is the best work, but it's a little bumpy sometimes. It's nice to have someone who's not part of your stakeholder group that can push you on some of those questions that nobody else really wants to touch, but they are the things in the conversations, like surveying your stakeholders. We knew that would be a great thing, and we had to kind of push and show evidence of that, but that was something that it would be very difficult if that was Steve's job to do, because then he's not really part of the learning team. He was kind of an outsider. So having an outside facilitator can be very helpful. Basing it on research, what are the key components? We could all create different systems, but really what works? And how do we create that in our district? If we don't have a common language about teaching and learning, then none of this really makes any sense. We have to build that common understanding of what we mean by great practice in the classroom for kids so that we can have a conversation about the great practice, not about you, not about me, but about the great practice for students. And go slow to go fast because it's slow, emotionally laden, great work that will be great for teachers and students. Do you want to tell them about, we have another opportunity for you. About our video?
Well, yes, we'll throw this up on the screen, but are there any questions, because time is our enemy as always, is there any questions for the talented panel that we have here before? Well, we're here to help. What we've done is put together a little video that tells the story of the work. You have this information. Oh, Roberto again in front of the camera. So we're going to close with this.
Instead of the gotcha model and the hammers coming down on you, it's let's look at a way so that we can all grow and improve education together.
E3, the Educator Effectiveness and Evaluation Project.
This is my 39th year teaching. For the last few years for evaluations, they come in, you're doing a great job. I'll write something up and put it in your box, but I'm never given the opportunity to learn and grow with the new things that come along.
Our current evaluation system isn't really working. We're not finding it to be a productive tool.
E3 helps districts retool their evaluation system and develop a professional growth model.
The E3 project is focused on implementing the recommendations of Greatness by Design. And the focus is building an integrated professional learning system, which really starts with creating a growth-based model for teacher evaluation.
The outcome will be a new performance appraisal system, and it will focus on growth, on teacher growth, and ultimately that means for us, student growth.
The project itself consists of two real structures. One is the academy structure, where 6 to 8 times a year we bring together all the participating district teams, and they learn about research, best practices nationally, the state, local, national context for this work. The other piece is facilitated intersessions back in their districts. It's the point where we take the learnings of the academy and do the so what does this mean for us in our district with our teachers building our growth model.
Participation in the E3 model really gives districts that opportunity and the time to learn about current research and core components of effective systems, and the time to learn together as a team to really do that mind shift and the culture shift in teacher evaluation from that event to a process.
You get teacher growth, you get teacher development into teacher leadership roles, and you have an acknowledgement for what those leadership roles can be in your system.
We help to build the capacity of districts to continue on improvement and professional growth within their districts.
We can align the entire system again to promote growth for teachers, which ultimately leads to growth for students.
E3 is a process where teacher feedback, support, and resources are identified in collaboration with administrators.
Our union president only agreed to come the first time, almost as a favor to me, just please come and see what's happening. He didn't bring a team because he wasn't in yet. And then once we came and he saw how this was going to be set up and that it was going to be an involvement of everyone and that everyone's voice, the next session he had his whole full team, and we've been on board ever since.
We don't have a model that we give districts for an evaluation system. We have a process over 2 years where we take their team through a series of activities, events, and learnings that results in them developing their own context-driven model.
One-size evaluation systems won't work in California for a variety of different reasons. Our contexts are different, our cultures and systems are different, and what's the brilliance of the E3 model is it really supports districts in creating, based on best practices, based on what is effective practice, what's going to work for their own system.
It's been a great relationship so far. We've been able to come to the table. We've been able to put our voice out there as far as what we feel we need.
And also giving administrators a better sense of how we work and what we do and how we do it.
E3 is a labor management partnership that's turning evaluation into professional development.
We've got union leadership and administrators together at the table, dissecting the information, coming to common understanding of what those words mean as they apply to the work of our teachers and our administrators in our programs.
Everyone's in a partnership to improve instructional practice for students.
For us, the real importance of working with districts on a teacher evaluation system is to provide the right support for teachers for professional growth.
The end result produces more successful students.
It's very exciting for the county office to be the lead in this project because we believe wholeheartedly in the importance of teacher effectiveness as it relates to student achievement.
This is an opportunity to do that, to create something beneficial for all, not just the educators, but something that will support our growth and students' learning.
E3 is not an end product. It's a support system for process.
I like the fact that this thing will be local, and they've stressed that from the beginning. Our system may not look like a system from other sister districts in the county or other counties, but if it works for us, it gets our teachers where we want them to be, it provides what we need, then that's going to be all right and that's going to be valued.
This project really is about moving from a checklist mentality where evaluation is an event that happens to a teacher to a process about growing and learning and improving practice that happens with the teacher, focused on those teachers' needs based on the students they teach.
E3 helps districts make a shift in the culture and understanding of what an evaluation needs to be.
If you don't have the best of working relationships with your school district or between labor and management, I think that slow, deliberate way of approaching it really helps build a little bit more trust as you go through the process.
One of the most important shifts we've seen among the districts that we work with is that partnership that's developed, that trust, that culture of we're in this together between labor and management.
E3, it's changing teacher evaluation into a system for professional growth.
If you ask us how far we've gotten on this evaluation tool, we're not very far after our first year, but has there been value in us being here? It's just unbelievable.
Trying to look at it differently as performance management really strengthens the focus on growth.
What that means at the classroom level is really improving instruction for kids.
Know that we're here to answer questions, we're here to support you, and there's limits to, no, let me say it differently. If you're willing to do the risky work and go out on the thin ice, this is the right work. That's probably the number one thing I would say. So thank you to the panel, and thank you for your time.